Yes, welcome to the part 2 biological classification text reading part 2 Kingdom Monera. The bacteria are the sole members of the kingdom Monera. Bacteria are the sole members of the kingdom Monera. They are the most abundant microorganism. They are the most abundant microorganism, and bacteria occur almost everywhere. Hundreds of bacteria are present in handful of soil. They also live in extreme habitats such as hot springs, desert, snow, and deep oceans where very few other life forms cannot survive. That many of them live in are on other organisms as parasites. Bacteria are grouped under four categories based on their shape. The spherical coccus, the spherical coccus, the rod shaped, the spherical coccus, the rod shaped bacillus, the rod shaped bacillus, the comma shaped vibrium, the comma shaped vibrium, and the spirillum. The bacteria grouped under four categories based on their shape. The spherical coccus, then rod-shaped bacillus, the comma-shaped vibrium, plural, cocci, bacilli, and vibrio, and spirilla. Okay, so this is to be remembered. Cocci, bacilli, vibrio, and spirilla shapes. Though the bacterial structure is very simple, they are very complex in behavior. Compared to many other organisms, bacteria as a group show the most extensive metabolic diversity. Some of the bacteria are autotrophic and they synthesize their own food from inorganic substrate. They may be photosynthetic autotrophic or chemosynthetic autotrophic. The vast majority of bacteria are heterotrophs. They do not synthesize their own food but depend on other organisms or on dead organic matter for food. Then let us see the first one, archaebacteria. These bacteria are special since they live in some of the most harsh habitats, most harsh habitats such as extreme salty areas. We say halophiles, extreme salty areas, halophiles. Hot springs, thermoacidophiles, hot springs, thermoacidophile. Okay, so we are writing means that is more important. And marshy areas, methanogens, marshy areas, methanogens. These things to be focused. Archaebacteria differ from other bacteria having a different cell structure, and this feature is responsible for their survival in extreme conditions. Particularly, methanogens are present in the gut of several ruminant animals. Methanogens are present in the gut of several ruminant animals, such as cows and buffaloes, and they are responsible for the production of methane, biogas, from the dung of these animals. Okay, so to be remembered, in case of archaebacteria, halophiles, thermoacidophile, and methanogens. Halophiles, those who live in extreme salty areas, we say halophiles. Then hot springs, thermoacidophile. Marshy areas, methanogens. And methanogens are present in the gut of several ruminant animals such as cows and buffaloes, and they are responsible for the production of methane, biogas, from the dung of these animals. Okay, then let's move towards eubacteria. There are thousands of different eubacteria, true bacteria. Eubacteria means true bacteria. They are characterized by the presence of a rigid cell wall and if motile, a flagellum. Rigid cell wall and if it is motile, a flagellum. The cyanobacteria, also referred as blue-green algae, the cyanobacteria, which is also referred as blue-green algae, have chlorophyll, similar to green plants and are photosynthetic autotrophs. Cyanobacteria, which is called blue-green algae, have chlorophyll and similar to green plants and are photosynthetic autotrophs. The cyanobacteria are unicellular, colonial, or filamentous. Cyanobacteria are unicellular, colonial, or filamentous. Then freshwater, marine, terrestrial algae. Freshwater or marine or terrestrial algae. The colonies are generally surrounded by a gelatinous sheath. They often form blooms in polluted water bodies. Some of these organisms can fix. They often form blooms in polluted water bodies, algal blooms, we use it to say. Then some of these organisms can fix atmospheric nitrogen in specialized cells called heterocyst. Specialized cells called heterocyst. Example, nostoc and anabina. Nostoc and anabina. The chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria oxidize various inorganic substances such as nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia and use the released energy for their ATP production. They play a great role in recycling of nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, and sulfur. Let's see once again. There are thousands of different eubacteria or true bacteria. They are characterized by the presence of rigid cell wall and, if motile, a flagellum. And the cyanobacteria, talking about cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria, also referred as blue-green algae, have chlorophyll and is similar to green plants and are photosynthetic autotrophs. Cyanobacteria is similar to the green plants and are photosynthetic autotrophs. The cyanobacteria are the characteristics of cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria are unicellular, colonial or filamentous, freshwater, marine or terrestrial algae. The colonies are generally surrounded by a gelatinous sheath. The colonies of cyanobacteria are generally surrounded by a gelatinous sheath. They often form blooms in polluted water bodies. Some of these organisms can fix atmospheric nitrogen in specialized cells called heterocysts. That's very important. Some of these organisms, excuse me, some of these organisms can fix atmospheric nitrogen in specialized cells called heterocysts. Nostoc and anabina are examples here. Chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria. The chemosynthetic autotrophic bacteria oxidize various inorganic substances such as nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia and use the released energy for their ATP production. They play a great role in recycling nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, and sulfur. Nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, and sulfur. Heterotrophic bacteria. Let's talk about heterotrophic bacteria. Okay, so heterotrophic bacteria are the most abundant in nature. Heterotrophic bacteria are the most abundant in nature. The majority are important decomposers. The majority are important decomposers. The majority are important decomposer, heterotrophic bacteria. So this is very important. And many of them have a significant impact on human affairs. They are helpful in making curd from milk, production of antibiotic, fixing nitrogen in legume, the curd from milk, production of antibiotics, then fixing nitrogen in legume roots. Some are pathogens causing damage to human beings, crops, farm animals, and pets. Cholera, typhoid, tetanus, citrus canker are well-known diseases caused by the different bacterium. Then bacteria reproduce mainly by fission. Bacteria reproduce mainly by fission. Then sometimes under unfavorable condition, they produce spores. Under unfavorable condition, they produce spores. So let me, bacteria reproduce mainly by fission. Here you can see. Under unfavorable condition, they produce spores. They also reproduce by a sort of sexual reproduction by adapting a primitive type of DNA transfer from one bacterium to the another. They also reproduce by a sort of, they also reproduce by a sort of sexual reproduction by adapting primitive a primitive type of DNA transfer from one bacterium to the other. The mycoplasma are organisms that completely lack cell wall. The mycoplasma are organisms that completely lack cell wall. They are the smallest living cells known. Mycoplasma are the smallest living cells known and can survive without oxygen. They can survive without oxygen. Many mycoplasma are pathogenic in animals and plants. Many mycoplasma are pathogenic in animals and plants. Okay, so this is about kingdom Monera. About kingdom Monera. I request you to watch many times that make you to get perfection. Then after you start answering the questions. In the part 3, we'll go with the kingdom Protista. The part 3 of biological classification will move with the kingdom Protista.